It's good. And I will give you a thumbs up. Okay. And now for me, it's good.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to another Friday seminar, Portland State University. I'm Kelly Clifton. I'm a professor in civil and environmental engineering. Before we talk about before I introduce our speaker today, I want to make an announcement comment to everyone registered for this class. I think things are going fairly smoothly. You guys are putting your questions into Dropbox. That's working pretty well. But while there are no stupid questions, there are some questions that might be better than others. So before you submit your question, I would like it to be a very good question. So thoughtful, maybe say it out loud. Is this something that you would ask to this person one-to-one? Because I'm feeling like some of these questions are getting phoned in a little bit. They're not as sort of on topic as they might be. So up your game, team, up your game.
Why assume the words?
I'm not assuming it. I've already seen it. I have empirical evidence. Yeah. Well, today we're going to be hopeful. So it's my pleasure today to introduce Martin Richberger. Richberger, we just went through this. Richberger, and he is at the University of Applied Sciences in Utrecht, the Netherlands, and he's an expert on sustainability and various aspects of urban sustainability. He's spending the month of May with us here in Portland to try to foster more collaboration between our two institutions, both in terms of research and in terms of teaching and curriculum development. So today he's going to talk about one of our favorite topics in Portland, cycling. So I'm just going to let Martin take it away.
Okay, thanks a lot for the introduction. So my name is Martijn Rietbergen. So this is the way you pronounce it in Dutch. So I work at the University of Applied Science, mostly at the Center of Expertise for Smart Sustainable Cities. My main interest is energy policy, energy-related issues. But biking and transportation mobility is also of great interest. It's important to stress that this very interesting presentation about biking and biking policy in Utrecht was provided by the municipality of Utrecht, and I've enriched this presentation with some personal experience and some pictures. So I'm going to talk about Utrecht, the bike capital of the world. Yes. Next slide. Doesn't work. No. Yeah, it works. Okay. So first a little bit a short introduction of Utrecht. It was actually founded more than 2,000 years ago by the Romans, and it is located on the Rhine River. It was located on the Rhine River because at that spot it was easy to cross the Rhine River at that time, and it was also a very strategic location to reach Britannia that the Romans wanted to invade. So that happened 2,000 years ago. Then we jump 2,000 years in the future. And this slide shows a development of the city of Utrecht in the past 100 years. So here you can see how Utrecht looked like in the 1920s. So it was mainly concentrated around the historic city center. Just before 1940, just before the Second World War, a couple of suburbs were added to the city. And after the Second World War, until the 1980s, a lot of new suburbs were added in the southwest and in the north. And at that time, all the city limits were already reached. So these were the city limits. In the year 2000, there was a merger between different municipalities, and this city on the west was becoming part of the municipality of Utrecht. And this gave a good chance to build a new modern suburb over there. Well, some facts about Utrecht. It is currently the 4th largest city in the Netherlands after Amsterdam, Rotterdam and The Hague. We have about 45,000 inhabitants within the municipality itself, and in the entire region there are of course much more. We have a very large university, different universities, a lot of research institutes and big medical centers. As you can see on the map that I brought, it's also at the intersection of a large number of important freeways in the Netherlands. So it brings together a lot of people that travel from east to west, north to south. And it also hosts the most busiest railway station in the Netherlands, Utrecht Central Station. This is not something that we are proud of, but because we're in the middle of the country, close to these freeways, we also had the very first traffic jam in the Netherlands in 1955. This is how it looks like. This is quite interesting. This picture was taken from a CNN website, and it says Utrecht is the best bicycle or cycling city in the world. So it's a bit strange that Dutch people say we are the best. I think most of the time American people do that. And this is strange because I found this yesterday. It's already exactly. This website says, "For the might just be," and this is typically something that Dutch people would say instead of "we are the best." But I think you're also doing some good work on cycling. But okay, I would like to tell a little bit more why Utrecht is the bike capital of the world. And this is also quite interesting. I think you are all aware of the Tour de France, the big cycling race in France. And we hosted the Grand Départ, the start of this Tour de France, 3 years ago, 2015. So this also marked all this huge interest in biking in the city of Utrecht. So the question, why do we think that biking is so important in Utrecht? Well, the main reason for that is that the overarching, let's say, policy theme that tunnels all measures and policies related to sustainability are aiming towards the development of a healthy urban living area. So that is what the municipality is aiming for. And the most important strategy is to give priority to pedestrians and cyclists, because we think, hey, this is a good strategy to reach this healthy urban living. And you all know that cycling is very clean, healthy, and economical. Other aspects which are also quite important, that it also helps with equity issues or improving that and emancipation. So it's available for young people at an age of 4 to 80, while driving a car that is driven, of course. Well, some numbers about Utrecht and bikes. The daily number of cyclists that pass the city center. So here, this is the city center, the historic town. The number of people going there and driving through is 125,000 per day. So that's quite a lot. I think 25% of the entire population of Portland. There's also a very busy route from west to east and east to west through the city center, and especially that road. Each day, 37,000 people will take that road. Also interesting figure is the amount of money put into the improvement of the infrastructure for biking, around $200 million in a period of 4 years. And the reason why the municipality is doing that is that we think that it's much more cost effective to invest in bicycle infrastructure rather than in roads. And there are also a lot of external benefits like improved health conditions, less noise pollution, less air pollution. Well, this short video shows what we are doing in Utrecht. Let me see if I can start it. Okay, so this video showed a couple of measures that the municipality has taken to facilitate biking in the municipality. I will talk a little bit more about these measures later on. But first, this very interesting slide about the modal split. So what type of modes of transport people are using versus the distance that they are taking. So we make a difference between motor vehicles, public transport, cyclists, and pedestrians. And here you can see the various distances. So you can see that if the distance is less than 7.5 kilometers, more than 40% of the people will take the bike. Obviously, if the distances will become bigger, larger, then that number drops very quickly. So these are the figures that are dealing with all traveling. If you ask people that are just going to the city center or back, then the number of people that take the bike is even higher, and 60% of the people will take the bike. So the question is, how did we achieve to become the bike capital of the world? So I will talk about that in the next, let's say, 20 minutes. But maybe before, it's important to stress, if there are any questions during the talk, please raise the questions right away. That's what I prefer. And before I continue, I also am interested in your idea and your impression about biking in Portland. And the question is, what are, according to you, the most annoying things about biking in Portland? Who can respond to that? Yeah?
I'd say it's still relatively dangerous compared to Dutch cities.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of debris from all the car traffic finds its way into the bike path where it doesn't really get swept up.
So it's dangerous. Who else? Yeah.
The bike paths are shared with pedestrians, unlike in Minneapolis where they're separate. They're going side by side, and that's difficult.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We're gonna have a lot of hills, steep slope.
A lot of hills, yeah. That makes it complicated.
Yeah.
We don't have a problem with that in the Netherlands, of course. Yeah.
Bike parking, it's not always easy downtown.
Mhm.
Secure bike parking. There's a lot of places that stick your bike on the street, but there's no guarantee your
Yeah.
bike will be there.
I'll talk about that later, how we do that. Who else?
I've seen great progress in the last 40 years since I came here, but still feels like a car city with too many cyclists being hurt and killed and injured. The main obstacles I find are too many drivers with cell phones, too many cyclists that don't obey traffic laws and ride like crazy, and the fact that it's a car culture.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, but the cyclists themselves are also part of the problem. Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah. Okay. So back to Utrecht. A couple of these issues that you raised, we are dealing with them as well. So there are, let's say, 6 different strategies that were used to facilitate biking to make it more fun in the Netherlands and in Utrecht. So a lot of effort was put in increasing the facilities for bike parking. Also a lot of effort was put in improving the infrastructure for bikes. We also worked on traffic lights to increase the traffic flow. Huge construction is going on in the city center, so that annoys also quite a lot of people. So we did work on that. Bike economy, so how can we further benefit from all this effort that we are putting into biking policy, and also bike safety that one of you also raised. So bicycle parking and enforcement. So this is how Utrecht used to look like. A huge amount of bikes. Doesn't look really very nice. This is near the central railway station, so it's really a big mess. And that is why a lot of new parking places were created. On this slide you can see 3 different types of parking spaces for bikes. We have the blue colored ones are the ones that are really near to the central railway station. So you can easily go there, park your bike and jump into a train. Then the green ones are more located near the city center. So if you want to go to the city center, you can park your bike there. And the red ones are the ones that are associated with companies. So in total, 22,000 public parking spaces were created around the central railway station, and another 11,000 by these companies. So this is how the new bicycle park at the west part of the railway station looks like. 3 to 4 stories high, that can host more than 4,000 bikes. So per year, more than 1 million customers. So really great bicycle park. This is on the east side of the station. Situation is even worse. And that is why they decided to build this largest parking facility in the world. It can host 12,000 bikes. Can you imagine? It is a really great experience if you go there, because it looks like a village. You can cycle through it, and let's see how it looks like. It looks very clean, it's very nice, and it's very safe. You're saying it's very big. Looks very nice. It's very close to the railway station. 3 stories high. You can bike inside the building. Okay, so this is the biggest, largest biking park in the world. So the municipality has done a lot of experiments with this large parking facility. It's free the first 24 hours. You just go there, you have your transit pass. You can use your transit pass to enter the building. There's also an internal guiding system, so you can see where are the empty spots in the parking, and as told you earlier, you can easily access the train station as well. Within the city center, there are also smaller parking facilities. In the city center, on really hot spots, mainly in the basement or in empty buildings. They are much smaller, but it's interesting that they also provide other facilities. So if you go there with your kids, you can take a stroller, rent a stroller. There's a storage facilities, there's a toilet, you can get some coffee and information about the city if you want. This is also quite innovative. You probably know this in the case of car parking. So at the car park it shows which car park has still empty spots, but you do this for bikes in the Netherlands. So if you go into the city center, you can choose where you go to the city hall or to the square, which is called Vredenburg, or to the street Lange Koestraat. And you can find your empty spot over there. And also parking facilities which are located outside the city center. We are working on that. We have parking facilities near schools. This one near offices. They look quite familiar with the facilities here in Portland as well. And we also have storages for bikes in neighborhoods. This is also quite innovative, I think. We have standards for the number of parking places for bikes. Not only for cars, but also for bikes. So, for example, if you want to start a new restaurant or pub, then you have to make sure that if it's in the city center, you at least have 23 bicycle parks available per 100 square meter of surface in your restaurant. So it's a completely different philosophy to facilitate biking instead of the car parking. So that was about car parking, bicycle parking. A lot of measures are also taken if it comes to bicycle infrastructure. So I've been talking about the expansion of the city center before. It's interesting to tell that the university is over here. It's not on this map. It's on the east side. There are two big universities, medical centers. So a lot of high educated people are working there. Where do you think that these people are going to live?
On the west side. Many on the west side where there's more housing.
Here, exactly. So this is a new area, relatively large houses, new houses, comfortable houses. They're going to live here. This is just a little bit more than 7.5 kilometers. So we don't want to we want to make sure that they're not going to take a car and drive on the highway. So we really have to facilitate biking and biking infrastructure on the road to the university area. So that is why these, let's say, long distance routes are really improved if it comes to infrastructure. One of the things that they are working on is this entire transition from really car-oriented streets. If you are cycling, you're just cycling on a car road. And then we introduce this type of, yesterday I learned that it's called advisory bike lanes along the side of the street. But now we're even transforming existing streets into cycling streets. And on these cycling streets, cars are considered as a guest. So we give priority to the cyclists. So this is how it looks like, streets with advisory bike lanes. And this is a cycling road. And you can see, you can read here in Dutch, your car is a guest on the street. It's a completely different philosophy. Also this very important crossing where the routes from north to south and south to east come together. It used to be a car or a road crossing, and now it's a crossing for cycling path. Also very important is the fact that the municipality also built a lot of new bridges and tunnels for cyclists to speed up or so that they can keep the speed as well. And this is a very huge, large investment that was done by the municipality. They invested in a bridge crossing across the Amsterdam-Rijn Canal, which is here. This is the canal, and it really divides the city, the old city with the new city. And they built a new bridge here, especially for cycling. Another thing that they have done on this really busy route through the city center is to build a bi-directional cycling path. And that's very annoying of Dutch cyclists. They always cross the red light. That's one thing. Another thing is that they always ride on the wrong side of the street. So that is good that they now made these bi-directional cycling paths. Any questions so far? No? We also made sure that all the cycling paths or the long distance routes are free of obstacles. So here you can see the old situation with some poles that were just on the cycling path. They removed it, so here they are not there anymore, and they put some nice pavement over there, so really looks pretty fast and no obstacles anymore. We also completely redesigned certain parts of the city. So here you can see the old situation really focused on cars and car parking, and all the cars were removed, car parking were removed, and you can see that there's a really different atmosphere. A little bit French style, that's what we call it, and much more room for cyclists. But not in every case room is given or priority is given to cyclists. On this street, the Drift, also in the city center, you can see that a lot of bicycles were parked, and it really turned into a dangerous situation if you're driving the car. So they also reconstructed that street and put some extra benches here, so it's more complicated to park your bicycle there. So not in every case we give priority to cyclists. This is also an interesting development. We developed the so-called light companion, and it helps you to cross the green light more frequently. So if you follow this green light on the right side of the street, and you keep up your speed with the green light, you can easily go through the green light. So that also prevents people from crossing red lights, which makes it safer on the streets as well. But not everything is perfect. This is also a situation not in Utrecht but in the Netherlands. So maybe when you're drunk it looks nice, but this is I think it's not very safe for cyclists and car drivers. Also, this picture was taken from Amsterdam. So this is the cycling path, but you should know that the wheels from the bikes in the Netherlands are a bit smaller or thinner than in Portland. So you can easily end up in this track of the streetcar, and who knows what's going to happen. This is also not perfect. We are also dealing with a lot of traffic jams, not with cars, but with cyclists. Yesterday I did the same presentation in Eugene, and they told me, yeah, this is what we want, this is what we like. And I said, yeah, in fact that is true, of course. Construction and detours. So in the, I have a slide about that. This is the city center. This is the historic city center on the right, and this is more or less the new city center with the new railway station, the new municipality office, and this entire area will be reconstructed. And I told you about a large number of cyclists that go to this area every day. 50,000, 100,000 people a day. So if you're reconstructing this area, it has a huge impact on all these cycling streets, cycling routes, etc. And it can be very annoying. I was taking this road every day, and every week I had to go a different direction. So they are really keen on that. So they created a lot of temporary cycling roads, and we also, the municipality also developed some activities to thank people and the cyclists for their patience while they had to drive through this, let's say, mess for a couple of months. So you get a free cup of coffee if you go to the central railway station, or these kinds of things. Next topic is about bike economy. So how can we even further benefit from all these efforts that we put into biking policy in Utrecht? So especially after this grand départ from the Tour de France, the municipality put a lot of effort in promoting Utrecht as a biking city and to attract a lot of visitors. Also, a couple of companies were important. They developed electric cargo bikes. I have a picture about that. It was pretty interesting. Looks really innovative. Cargo bikes that can handle more than 125 kilograms of goods that they can transport. So that's really nice. So we have talked about this parking standards and the traffic light companion. But this is also interesting that the municipality was also promoting cycling among companies. So if you are an employee and you go by bike to your work, let's say 2 or 3 times per week, then they had some incentives for that as well. We also introduced a new rental system for bikes. It may sound a bit strange because you already have it here, and in that sense we are lagging behind a little bit. And the reason is, I think, that everybody in the Netherlands has a bike. On average, we have 1.2 bike per person. So why would you start a rental system? The main reason to do that was to make it as an extension of your railway trip. So you go to the railway station from Amsterdam to Utrecht, and in Utrecht you can rent a bike. You can rent it for €4 per day. At the end of the day, you bring it back to the railway station. So that's the main reason why this is really successful now. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this example, this is a dockless. I mean, this is a dock like share system. Are you also experimenting with dockless bike share? Where the bike does not have to be returned to a specific docking location?
Yeah. This is a picture of a docking station in the city center. Mm-hmm. But we also have these rental bikes at the railway station itself, so it doesn't need a dock. But you have to return it in the same spot where you have rented it. Yeah.
Because in a lot of U.S. cities right now, it's very, very popular, the uptake of dockless bike shares, where the bikes, the only thing you need to unlock the bike essentially is your phone.
Yeah.
Lock on the bike.
No, that's different here. Yeah. These stations cost, by the way, about €30,000. So to facilitate this, the number of, let's say there are 10 bikes, about €30,000. Bicycle safety, also a big issue here, I think. Dutch cyclists are really aggressive, I think, in the not only cyclists but also pedestrians and car drivers. In Portland, they're really polite. If you enter a crossing, all the cars will stop. So that is really great. I think we can learn from you with that respect. So a lot of things were, a lot of measures were taken to improve the safety among cyclists. And one big issue is the large increase of people that have electric bikes. And a lot of older people have electric bikes, and they are going very fast. They are quite heavy. So the municipality organized some information days to handle these bikes and to improve these skills among older people. A very important development was also the second bullet, that mopeds now have to drive on the roadway. So they're, since 1 year ago, they were allowed to drive on the cycling path, but now because their speed is much higher than the bikes, they have to drive on the road. So that increases the safety of the bikes even further. Another interesting event or development was the so-called hotline for traffic lights. Actually, it was a website, and on this website, all the traffic lights in the city center were mapped. And you could give feedback to the municipality about this traffic light. So you could say, okay, this is totally ridiculous that there is a traffic light at all, or it takes 10 minutes before I have a green light to cross the street. So a lot of responses were given to these traffic lights, and also some parts of the traffic lights were also even switched off. And again, it all gives priority for cyclists instead of cars. Some further developments if it comes to safety. There's a special quality mark for elementary schools if they are dealing with safety in a proper way. So if they create interesting safe zones near their school, and if they influence the parents of kids on their behavior, then they could qualify for a so-called quality mark. And then we also have a so-called exam, a traffic exam for kids when they are on the primary school. So we learn them how to drive and all the traffic rules. Do you also have that here in Portland or in the US? No? No. So that's quite important to give them sufficient confidence to drive on the street. And this is also one thing that I really like. The municipality also organized cycling lessons for adults and refugees. So recently we had a large inflow of refugees from the Middle East. We also have a big minority of people that come from Morocco, and most of the time they are not really used to cycling. But if you can cycle, then there's a lot of opportunities. You can go to work, you can do leisure activities, you can go into the city center. So it's really important that everybody can bike and can move him or herself. So that is the reason why we also organize cycling lessons for these people. Well, this is more or less the end of the slideshow. I've experienced biking in Portland for a couple of weeks. I think it's challenging. I'm doing still okay. Also, I've seen that you have already implemented similar type of measures as I've shown here on the slide. So I would say keep up the good work, and I'm happy to take some questions. Yeah.
You didn't talk about seasonality and weather, so how does the usage of bicycling change by season or on bad weather days?
Yeah. So the question was okay, what are we going to do if it starts to rain or starts to snow? Dutch people also don't like rain. Me neither. So we have a quite good network of buses within the city center, so you can see that all the buses are overcrowded. So that's one thing that's happening. I think the municipality also is very keen on the weather. So it starts to snow, then they are putting salt on the cycling road, but mainly on these long distance routes. So these type of measures are also taken. Yeah.
Do you know what percentage of your fleet is electrified?
Yeah, that's 15%. That's quite high. So 15% of the 15% of the households have an electric bike. but no, it depends a bit how you interpret it.
And
It's quite-
are they doing things to essentially promote the use of electric bikes and make it easy, like charging stations, et cetera? Places you can charge?
Yeah, you have there. For example, at the university, you have charging stations for electric bikes. So that is an important measure. Your employee, and it's also interesting to tell that you can buy a bike from your employer with a huge discount of 40%. So that is really, really cheap. And even electric bikes are, I think, more cheaper because it is an alternative for a car. But that is a very important reason why they promote electric bikes. Especially if you look at these areas, we have a lot of smaller towns that are a little bit further away. Just let's say outside this 7.5 kilometer range, Nieuwegein is here. Here on the east there are also a couple of smaller towns, and here Maarsen in the northwest. So if you have an electric bike, it's quite convenient to go there by electric bike.
It's a strategy essentially for being able to serve more trips.
Yeah.
You mentioned the costs of bike infrastructure. Have you found that the capital improvement, the municipalities' capital improvement allocations have shifted from road to bikes, or there have been new allocations for that?
To be honest, I don't know the answer, but it's also important to stress that the responsibility for the highways, for example, is not the responsibility of the municipality. So it's difficult to judge. Now, what you can see is that I've shown you that they are really constructing cycling roads. So that means that the money is going there and not anymore to car road infrastructure. What they're also doing is that when it comes to car road infrastructure, they're especially, they call it now boulevards. They are changing that from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And so they're also try to reduce the amount of traffic that goes or can go through to the areas. So it's, I think that is a second strategy, but also investments are needed for that as well.
Can you talk a little bit about the historical level of bike usage there? Has it always historically been a kind of a high percentage of cycling, or was this really a shift in the last 20 years that kind of forced people into bicycling as a easier mode of transportation?
Well, I can I think make 2 interesting comments about that. First one is that in the 1960s, I think 1960, there was a plan that was developed by a German planner, and the idea was to give priority to cars. So the idea was to create highways that could reach the inner city center. So from this highway, go to this place. And actually only one road was realized, and it was this road here. And it was actually a 4-lane, it really looked like a highway that it goes right into the city center. But recently they have demolished this highway, and now there's a very nice canal in this instead of this 4-lane highway. So it's a completely a shift to give priority to cars, and then after 30 years it changed the other way around. And the second comment is that the strong focus on bicycle culture also is due to the fact that we have a green left government that is now in power in the municipality for, let's say, 8 years. So yeah, we have to, I think they are responsible for this shift as well.
Have you seen during this period of shifting, was there a lot of initial pushback towards the move away from automotive transportation towards bicycle infrastructure, or was it pretty well accepted by the, or received by the general population?
I think it's a little bit 50-50. A lot of people, they love biking, they live within the city. So there's 40% of people that take the bike. I think they were really in favor of all these measures. But also, yeah, there's also a big debate about people, especially especially from shop owners. You know that shops cannot be reached anymore by car. But in the end, people can see that it has a huge impact on urban quality, on air quality, and I really believe that in the end, people are really will like it and accept it.
I think during the slideshow, you said there was incentives that businesses offer their employees to bike.
Yeah.
What kind of incentives, and is there any incentive for the business to offer incentives? Like, why do the businesses do that?
Your first question was about incentives for the employees. One of the incentives is the huge discount that you can get on buying a bike. That's one important thing. I have a friend that is living very close to me, and he has to go to Maarsen every day. And normally he was taking the car, and he suddenly received a letter from the government. We've seen that you're driving your car every day on this highway. We're going to pay you if you are taking your bike instead of the car. So that's also one of the incentives. And for the companies, I think it's an interesting way to show that you also have a kind of corporate social responsibility policy in place. That is also for the companies, I think, very important.
When I visited Amsterdam 10 years ago, long-term bike storage by people who would come into the city via rail, oftentimes ride their bike to the rail station and then ride the train into the city. And then they would store a second bike that they would use for transport within the city.
Yep.
So that long-term storage, bike storage was a real problem. There was a lot of derelict bikes, a lot of clutter from bikes. So is this new kind of parking regulation and enforcement, is it aimed at addressing some of that problem? I noticed you had that 24-hour policy that allowed it to be free for the first 24 hours, but then payment would kick in if they tried to store the car longer.
Yeah. Exactly. All these pictures with all the great mess of bikes, these are indeed bikes that are just old bikes that are put there. When you arrive at the central station, you can take it. I think that still people that go to Utrecht every day just stall their bike in this new parking facility. And if you take it and you bring it back, then you can start your 24 hours again. Or you can also get a subscription to this parking facilities, and it's not really expensive. Or you make use of this rental bike system. You can also get a subscription for that. Or I think in both ways it helps reducing the number of bikes on the street.
But it sounds like you had very strategies to try to address all that bike clutter and abandoned bikes.
Yeah. And they also have people walking around that are checking bikes if they are already there for let's say 2 weeks. Then they are being marked and taken away, and but this is also another strategy to get rid of these bikes.
Have you seen any measurable improvement in the health of the population as you've gone through this shift from cars to bikes?
Good question. The answer is that I don't know. No. That's I think health impacts are of course something that need to be investigated over a longer period of time. But I don't know the answer. Didn't look into that. Sorry.
We have a question from the web. So one of the students was asking about how this transitions from the sort of city center to more suburban areas. And I think maybe some context about how Dutch cities look. And, you know, we have an urban growth boundary here. Can you talk a little bit about what it looks like outside of that boundary and how the facilities might transition into the city?
Yeah. Well, if you look at the development of Utrecht, we also have this, I told it already in the beginning a little bit, we used to have this growth boundary here. So this is the border of Utrecht. Then this was added to Utrecht. And there's also, by the way, this part is also part of the municipality. But there's also philosophy that the large number of inhabitants that will start living in Utrecht, so it's very popular, so there will be a huge increase. We're not going to build new residential areas here. This is rural area. So all these new buildings need to be constructed within the existing city boundaries. And that's, for example, here on the map, a very old industrial area, and it will completely be redeveloped into a residential area. And you must know that, I mean, all these cities are really compact. So this is only 7 kilometers, 10 kilometers. So it's really, really small and compact. Does it answer the question? Yeah.
Is there any interest in moving the freeway that kind of like cuts through the west side, like moving it to the perimeter rather than cutting through the city?
Yeah, good question. This freeway was already there, and then the suburb was built. What they did is they built the largest land tunnel in the Netherlands. So now they built a tunnel 1 kilometer, and in this way they want to better connect both parts of the town. But there's even a bigger problem, this canal. There's even a bigger barrier for people. Yeah? There's also a big debate about, we have a very nice forest here, a big debate about this highway to make it 10 to 12 lanes. And there are a lot of people opposing to that. Okay, that's a different discussion. Yep.
So kind of piggybacking off that and the previous question, are there any plans to start connecting some of these green spaces to the network? Because obviously you're focusing on where people live and shop most of the time, but as the city grows and people want to travel out to the outerlying areas for more recreational purposes, do you know if there are any existing plans to expand the bike network to better incorporate those rural areas?
Okay, so the question is whether biking lanes and bike networks are connected to this green areas.
There are plans to better connect those rural areas in the future.
Yeah. Well, if it comes to the biking network, there is a huge network of recreational cycling paths in the Netherlands, and they connect all the cities and all the forests in the Netherlands. So that's already there. And connecting green spaces, there is a policy for that, but that is on a national scale. And the idea is that indeed all these green spaces are being connected. This green space is also part of that. But I go here very often for running in the Sunday morning. We sometimes see some deer. The problem is that you can see here we have two highways, so the deer cannot go any further. So this is the very end of this green connected space.
You mentioned early on that cycling is seen as emancipation. Mm-hmm. That strikes me as an idea that would be impossible here. Can you comment on that? How does that come about in the Netherlands, that people believe that?
Yeah, difficult question. Yeah, maybe it's like in the US that that having a car is seen as a kind of civil right. Maybe in the Netherlands it's just the other way around. So if you have a bike and you're able to bike, then it gives you enormous opportunities. So maybe it's a bit similar like that. So,
is it also true that owning a car isn't as accessible in the Netherlands because of taxation and pricing problems?
Yeah.
Parking and that.
Yeah. Yesterday I told there was a similar kind of question. If you want to buy a car, there's a 40 to 50% tax on having a car, buying a car. So it's really expensive. If you're living in the city, it doesn't make sense to have a car. It's ridiculous because the public transport is so good. And even among young people, you are a loser if you have a car. Really. Yeah. So people my age is a bit different, but if you are, let's say, in your 20 to 30, don't own a car. Completely different way of life. Okay. It's almost 1 o'clock. A couple of more questions, yeah?
Can you talk briefly, I know it wasn't the focus of this, but about how the public transportation system, works with the bicycling system? Was that something that they are focusing on as well, or has that always been a focus of the
how it connects, you mean?
Well, just how they work together, how it supports the bicycling network. Has it always been a focus, the public transportation, or are they also putting a lot more money into that to help draw people away from using vehicles?
Yeah. So the connection between a railway system and bikes is something that I think that a development that took place the last 15 years, I think. And they really started these rental systems at the railway station. That is quite new. We also have these taxis that are provided by the railway system, railway company, which are also relatively cheap. But facilitating these last miles when you have reached the railway station, that is something that has developed just very recently. Taking your bike on the train is not something that is really facilitated because it's very crowded on the train.
Do you have any thoughts about, when you look at all the pictures in the Netherlands or most other European cities, there's no bike helmets. You get into the US and it's almost like you're required to wear a bike helmet. And it seems like that at times can be a barrier here. Do you have any thoughts or ideas?
I have a clear idea about it because I got a bike from the bike hub and they gave me a helmet and I'm wearing this helmet. But I think it's more important to have a helmet in the Netherlands because you're going much faster, much more traffic. Here it's very slow. People are very polite. So I would promote wearing a helmet in the Netherlands instead of doing it here.
Interesting.
Yeah. And my kids also used to wear a helmet, but when they reach the age of 10 to 11, then it's not cool anymore. You know, they have to get rid of it back.
My question is, how is drunk bicycling addressed as opposed to drunk driving in the car? Is it a lesser offense? I mean, you have such a high number of people bicycling that stuff.
That's an easy answer. Officially, it's not allowed to drive a bike when you're drunk, but they don't enforce it. So that's only if you're really making. I think if you're really come in really unsafe situations, or if you're making trouble, then it might be a reason that the police is taking you to the police station. But normally, it's no problem. Yeah. Maybe that's a very nice question to end. Yeah?
Happy Friday. Sure. Let's thank Martin for his. And so don't forget to submit your very good questions on Dropbox. And we'll see you next week when our speaker is going to be Dr. Stephen Gerke. He's an alum of PSU. He's now with the MAPC, which is the Regional Planning Council in Boston. He's going to talk about ride-hailing services. So see you then.
If you're interested, I have a business card here, so if you want to know more about biking or Utrecht or the Netherlands, then feel free to take it.
And Martin's here for another 2 weeks, so
Yeah.
pick his brain.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great job. Yeah. I thought that the student asked this question about trying to compare. The land building process is very centralized, very different there. So